There's a fragrance that changed everything. Not just the market, not just the industry, everything. Its name is Creed Aventus. And if you've been in the fragrance world for longer than 5 minutes, you already know the legend. The pineapple, the smoke, the bottles that cost as much as rent, the batches that people hunt like treasure, the clones that flooded the market, trying and failing to capture what it did effortlessly. But here's what most people don't understand. There was a time when every bottle of Aventus was a masterpiece. A time when you didn't need to know batch codes, didn't need to pray to the fragrance gods that your bottle would perform, didn't need to gamble $400 on whether you'd get the real thing or a watered-down shadow. There was a time when Aventus wasn't just legendary, it was reliable. Here's the question that's going to haunt this entire video. How good was Creed Aventus in its prime? And why can't we get that back? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Aventus didn't fall like Sauvage. It didn't need to prove itself like Bleu de Chanel. Aventus did something worse. It became inconsistent. And in a world where a $400 bottle is supposed to guarantee excellence, inconsistency is the cruelest betrayal. So today, we're going back. Back to 2011. Back to the golden batches. Back to when Aventus wasn't a lottery. It was a guarantee. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why the fragrance community is still chasing something that may never return. Let's begin. Picture the luxury fragrance market in 2009. It was stagnant. The designer houses were playing it safe. Fresh aquatics, generic woods, forgettable compositions designed not to offend. The niche market existed, but it was a whisper. A secret club for connoisseurs who knew the hidden boutiques in obscure European houses. There was no bridge between mass appeal and true artistry. No fragrance that could be both universally loved and undeniably luxurious. And then in 2010, a nearly 250-year-old French house called Creed, known for their handcrafted boutique scents worn by royalty and presidents, decided to do something radical. They created a fragrance for the modern king. Not the king born into power, the king who built it. They called it Aventus, named after the Latin word for success. And what they created wasn't just a fragrance, it was a declaration of war on mediocrity. Let's talk about what made Aventus different, because this is where the revolution begins. The opening, a sharp, succulent blast of pineapple. Not subtle, not whispered. An explosion of bright, juicy, almost tropical fruit that immediately grabs you by the throat. But here's the genius. It wasn't sweet. It was sharp, green, almost metallic thanks to the blackcurrant and apple cutting through the sugar. It was fruit with teeth. Here's the first question. Why did pineapple change everything? Because before Aventus, pineapple in men's fragrance was unthinkable. Fruit was for women. Fruit was for summer colognes. Fruit was for scents that didn't take themselves seriously. But Creed didn't use pineapple to be playful. They used it to be dangerous. Because just as that juicy opening starts to settle, the heart arrives. Birch tar, patchouli, Moroccan jasmine. And then, the signature that would define an entire era. Smoke. Deep, dry, almost burnt birchwood smoke. This wasn't a campfire. This wasn't incense. This was the scent of ambition, of leather boardroom chairs, of whiskey in crystal glasses, of the kind of power that doesn't need to announce itself because you can smell it walking towards you. And then the dry down, oak moss, ambergris, vanilla, musk. Warm, clean, sophisticated. The kind of bass that wraps around you and refuses to let go for hours. This was the formula that broke every rule. Fruity but masculine, sweet but smoky, fresh but powerful. Aventus created a genre that didn't exist, the Fruity-Smoky Chypre. And once it existed, the entire fragrance world scrambled to copy it. But the scent alone wasn't enough to make it legendary. Because Aventus wasn't just a fragrance, it was a status symbol. Let's talk about what Aventus meant. Because in the early 2010s, wearing Aventus was a statement. It said, I don't follow trends, I set them. At $300 to $400 per bottle, Aventus wasn't just expensive, it was prohibitively expensive for most people. And that exclusivity, that was the point. Here's the second question. Why did the price matter as much as the scent? Because luxury isn't just about quality, it's about separation. When you wore Aventus, you weren't just wearing a fragrance. You were wearing a signal that said, I've made it. Reports started circulating. Jay-Z wears Aventus. David Beckham wears Aventus. CEOs, athletes, actors, the men who lived at the top wore this scent. And suddenly, Aventus wasn't just a fragrance. It was the uniform of the executive class. But here's where Aventus did something truly genius. It didn't just appeal to the ultra-wealthy. It appealed to everyone. Because that pineapple opening, that was universal, approachable. The kind of scent that made people stop and say, what are you wearing? The compliments were instant. The projection was monstrous. One spray could fill a room. 2 sprays could last 12 hours. Aventus became the original compliment king, the fragrance that made you memorable. And then the batches arrived. 2011 to 2016. This was the golden window, the era when every bottle of Aventus was a beast. The community started noticing something. Not all Aventus bottles smelled the same. Some leaned fruitier, some leaned smokier, some projected like nuclear weapons. Others didn't. And so the obsession began. Here's the third question. Why did batch codes become a religion? Because the early batches, like the legendary 11Z01, were perfect. They had the ideal balance. Enough pineapple to be addictive, enough smoke to be masculine, and enough performance to justify every dollar. These bottles became legends. People hunted them on forums, Facebook groups, eBay auctions. They paid more than retail for a bottle from 2012 because they knew that those batches were untouchable. This wasn't just a fragrance anymore. It was a treasure hunt. And the prize? A bottle that smelled the way Aventus was supposed to smell. But here's the tragedy. As Aventus became more popular, as production ramped up, as demand exploded, the consistency disappeared. Let me ask you something. What's worse? A fragrance that falls from grace, or a fragrance that stays legendary but becomes unreliable? Because that's what happened to Aventus. Post-2020, the batch lottery became a gamble. You could spend $400 on a bottle and get a masterpiece. Bright, smoky, powerful, lasting 10 hours with projection that fills a room. Or you could spend $400 and get a watered-down shadow. Weak performance, fruity but flat. Gone in 4 hours. The fragrance community erupted. Aventus isn't what it used to be. They reformulated it. Modern batches are garbage. Here's the fourth question. Why does inconsistency hurt more than decline? Because when a fragrance falls, you can move on. You can say, it was great once, but it's over. But Aventus never fell. It's still loved, still respected, still the most cloned fragrance in history. But it's no longer trusted. And that is the cruelest form of betrayal. Because every time you buy a bottle of Aventus now, you're not just buying a fragrance, you're buying a lottery ticket. And the prize? The chance to smell what you used to be able to smell guaranteed. Aventus didn't die. It just stopped being reliable. And for a $400 fragrance, that's unforgivable. So how good was Creed Aventus in its prime? Here's the truth. Aventus in its prime, 2011 to 2016, wasn't just good. It was transformational. It didn't just dominate a category. It created one. The Fruity-Smoky Chypre didn't exist before Aventus. Now it's everywhere. Mont Blanc Explorer, Armaf Club de Nuit, dozens of clones trying to capture the magic. But here's the thing about clones. They prove the original was undeniable. Aventus did three things that secured its legend. First, it broke the rules. Pineapple and smoke? Fruit and leather? It shouldn't have worked. But it was genius. Second, it created a new tier of luxury. Before Aventus, niche fragrances were secret. After Aventus, they were a movement. It single-handedly dragged the entire niche market into the mainstream spotlight. Third, it made fragrance personal. The batch obsession, the hunt for the perfect bottle, it turned Aventus from a product into a pursuit. But here's the lesson. Aventus's prime wasn't about the scent. It was about the guarantee. When you bought Aventus in 2013, you knew what you were getting. You knew it would perform. You knew it would last. You knew it would make you unforgettable. And now? Now it's a gamble. So the real question isn't, how good was Aventus in its prime? The real question is, what does it mean when a legend can't maintain its own standard? Here's what you take away from the rise and crisis of Creed Aventus. Lesson 1. Excellence without consistency is just a memory. It doesn't matter how good you were if people can't trust you now. Lesson 2. When you set the standard, you don't get to lower it. Aventus taught the world what niche luxury could be, but when the quality wavered, the legend cracked. Lesson 3. Legacy is built on reliability. Bleu de Chanel survived because it stayed consistent. Aventus struggles because it didn't. But here's the deeper truth. Aventus's prime taught us what peak performance smells like. And that knowledge, that memory, is why the community still hunts for it. Because once you've experienced true excellence, you can never forget it. So the question isn't whether Aventus was good in its prime. The question is, are you building something so exceptional that people will hunt for it years later? Are you architecting a system in your work, your presence, your life, that people will remember even if it changes? Because that's the difference between being forgotten and being legendary. If this video made you rethink not just Aventus, but the entire concept of consistency and legacy, hit that like button. If you want more deep dives into the fragrances that shape the culture, subscribe and turn on notifications. And drop a comment. What batch of Aventus do you own? And does it live up to the legend? I'll see you in the next one. Until then, architect your excellence with us in The Fragrance Affair.